James Wiseman has the tools to be the NBA's next star big man.
Anthony Bennett, Hashim Thabit, and James Wiseman, the only top 2 draft picks in NBA's history to be sent down to the G League. Although James, even against an easier competition, seemed to have the same problem as he had playing in the NBA. James was simply inefficient, and whenever he stepped on the floor, his team was bleeding in points. This main issue of James Wiseman in today's analytical basketball environment is a huge deal, and it didn't stop just with the G League nor Golden State. After getting traded to Detroit, James failed to register a positive plus-minus stat in his first 5 games. Now, in some defense to James Wiseman, his teammates were equally ineffective as Pistons were tanking and he had to play alongside Killian Hayes, Magruder, and Marvin Bagley. Being an analytical nightmare aside, Wiseman's game doesn't really pass the eye test, and let me show you why. Firstly, Wiseman's defense. In the first situation, Wiseman is meant to play drop coverage. Simply put, his job is to prevent any drives to the basket. He allows the inefficient mid-range jump shot, and if it's a three-pointer, his teammate Jaden Ivey will contest the shot from behind. But due to poor positioning, going too high, and not staying in front of the ball handler, DeAndre Hunter explodes on James. Wiseman struggled in Warriors uniform with drop coverage, and this is an example how he should defend it. He has good length and can always recover late and contest the shot. Now, obviously, against players like Trae Young, Wiseman is instructed to switch, but currently he's a terrible ISO defender as he gets cooked by opponents that are smaller and faster. This is what I absolutely fucking hate in Wiseman's game. He defends perfectly against DeRozan, meets him at the very end, forces a pass, but the play didn't end there and James simply forgets about DeMar as DeRozan keeps moving. Wiseman is still clueless on what's happening and where is his defensive assignment as DeMar gets an open look. Similar play against Jamal Murray, good defense, active hands, but then James decides to forget about Jamal. Without any communication to Killian Hayes, he switches back on Capella. Now maybe you could blame Killian, but then again James is the one that has to yell switch. I'm not even sure is it lack of motivation, defensive awareness, composure, or simply inexperience, but James does this a lot and against players that you are instructed to guard closely. Boxing out and rebounding is another issue of James Wiseman. Him combined with Marvin Bagley leads to some atrocious rim protection. They both are lengthy dudes, but they both seem to get lost while scrambling to pick out their assignments. Wiseman is great in help situations where you mostly need good patience, timing, and length. James does a great job of not overcommitting by chasing the block too early. Obviously, James has good size, good verticality, and if he has a good position, casual attempts to dunk over him most of the time gets rejected. The bad thing that usually James lets his opponents to get in their favorable position, stronger hand, and also, once again, drop coverage. I've noticed that if the driving player isn't just trying to explode over Wiseman and, for example, initiates the contact first, in this situation with an elbow, Wiseman goes flying. Washington just kept including Wiseman in the pick and roll actions. At first it was Gafford and Kuzma driving, later on it was Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis popping to the three-point line. Every single time James simply dropped too low. Another example of Wiseman's lack of physicality is his screens. Whenever James is screening for a smaller teammate, he doesn't really create any advantage. The opponents quickly go around him as he also rushes to cut to the paint. It's just another crucial component of being a center that Wiseman simply doesn't have. Touching his offense a little bit more, I've seen him play bully ball against some matchups. It was successful, but for example against tougher opponents like Nikola Jokic, it seemed as if James suddenly hits a wall. His footwork is great, but his current post game is one-dimensional. If he doesn't push his opponent off, he immediately goes for a fadeaway or a hook. I didn't witness a single pass. He's always determined to finish that post-up game with a shot, and he doesn't care if it's a highly contested low percentage shot. Of course, it doesn't help that Wiseman didn't have any playmaking in Detroit, as Killian Hayes is another player that I should do a video about. As I mentioned before, James doesn't really look or find open teammates, and overall his vision and passing is pretty bad. With all the things being said, yes, currently James Wiseman sadly is unplayable, but we need to understand some crucial details what led a second overall pick to this current situation. James Wiseman, before getting drafted by Golden State Warriors, only played 3 games for Memphis University as NCAA ruled him ineligible to play for the team as his head coach Penny Hardaway paid $11,000 in moving expenses, just to help James and his family to move to the city of Memphis in 2017. So Wiseman had zero experience at college level, and he goes to a championship team with Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green that expects you to be NBA ready from the get-go. Your team is contending for an NBA title, you're not allowed to have any room for mistakes. You're playing in a constant motion guard-oriented system. It kinda reminds me of this guy's situation. Even for Golden State in 2 years, Wiseman played 60 combined games, not even a full season. We already seen his incredible ball handling, footwork, running to the fast break. He's a young, lengthy big guy, but the defensive issues are a serious problem that has to be addressed and fixed. Detroit Pistons are in a similar situation that Philadelphia 76ers were about 10 years ago. Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, Marvin Bagley, and James Wiseman. Who's the best option at the center position? Who is the best option to support Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey? Now, the biggest mystery with James Wiseman is that we cannot take any examples from his college years. We can't see any percentages, and to actually know what to expect, his jump shot looks good, but most of his points comes from the restricted area. I want to believe that most of his weaknesses comes from the lack of competing and simply developing. Monty Williams will be an excellent coach for Wiseman, although I personally prefer Jalen Duren. Jalen is the youngest Detroit Piston. He's only 19 while Wiseman is 22, and Jalen simply does all the little things. Passing, rebounding, hustle, he does a better job in pick and roll defense, and I think he's the center that you want to have alongside Detroit's backcourt. The amount of rebounds and loose balls that Jalen catches really impressed me. He positions himself well, has a good leaping ability and quick hands. Playing both of them didn't work, as I said before. Most of Wiseman's points comes from the inside of the paint area, same with Duren. I'm pretty excited for the upcoming Detroit season. Tanking has to be over, they will be trying to win with Monty Williams. It will be exciting to see either Wiseman, Duren, Stewart, or Bagley fits better with Cade Cunningham. And you need to understand something, all of these dudes, Killian Hayes, who I'm not the biggest fan of, Jaden Ivey, James Wiseman, are still so young. Marvin Bagley is the oldest one and he's 24, they can still improve, they can still develop, but for fuck's sake you need to be patient. People are so quick to judge and write off young prospects by calling them busts. Just give them some time. I would say that next season with Monty Williams, who's a great coach, we can start analyzing every Pistons player individually. What scares me the most with James Wiseman is that he needs to learn so freaking much. He's a center, so you can't hide his defensive liabilities. Offensively, big details like screening is another important thing. And how do you teach defensive awareness, communication, and basketball IQ? Big guys literally had to reinvent themselves just to extend their careers. Some improved their defense, some improved their three-point shooting just to be efficient enough to keep playing in the NBA.